Hello and welcome again to this edition of Meet the Candidates. I'm David Nicholas, and this time we welcome Representative Phil Potvin. He is the Republican from Michigan's 102nd District, and he is seeking re-election to a second term for that office. Representative, thanks very much for being with us today.
Oh, David, you're welcome. My pleasure to be here.
As our title implies, Meet the Candidates, a chance for you, even as an incumbent in this race, to get folks reacquainted with a little bit of your background and the experience that you bring to this race. We'll do that in the first couple of minutes here.
Okay. Very good. Well, I was born in Alpena, but raised in Cadillac. My parents had Western Concrete Products Company, a longtime supplier of the campus right here with block and brick for many, many years, as well as the stadium. So I'm very familiar with Central Michigan. Also, Central is my master's degree in marketing and management, an MBA. My bachelor's degree came from Albion College, a graduate of Cadillac High School, as is my wife Jan, and we've been married for 45 years. We have 4 married grandchildren, or more married children, and 8 grandchildren, all living in the state of Michigan, which I'm very proud of. And as I get with my legislative colleagues, there aren't many of us like that. So I stand very proud, and they're all working in Michigan, which is wonderful.
As an incumbent in this race, what would you identify as the primary issues as you see them, and do some of these apply directly to what you would say you've achieved in your first term, things that you would point to that you've done legislatively to work actively on those issues?
Well, it really is a continuation of what I started with 3 years ago when I began to run for the 102nd, Dave, and that is jobs. Jobs in Michigan are so important. You know, if you think back just a minute, 2 years ago, where were we? Wow, 14% unemployment plus, one of the top. Today, where are we? 9.4%. Phenomenal change. There have been some good things that took place, and I was part of that in that 96 legislature these past 2 years. One of those things was the removal of the Michigan business tax. Everyone thinks, well, that was for the big corporations. In reality, the big corporations have all their tax credits, and they will for many years to come. So they don't even apply here. What it really applies is to our small and middle-sized companies, all of the non-C corporations, mainly the family businesses. And it's time that we began, and we already are beginning, to refill those stores that went vacant back in 07, 08, 09, and even 10. It's really exciting to see the change that's taking place. So jobs, I think, is still our number one priority as we move forward. Now, the big challenge we had in 11 was the fact that Michigan was underwater. Our budget was underwater. We were supposed to have a balanced budget. We did not have. Governor Snyder came in, and as an accountant, he said, whoa, we're going to balance this budget. And we did. But we asked every department, that's 19 of them in the state of Michigan, to help us out. Some cooperated, others, we just had to do it. And we did. We tightened our belt. We lowered the budget for the state in 11 and 12, and we filled in that $1.5 billion deficit that we had. Filled it in. The exciting thing for me coming up, Dave, is that starting Monday, October 1st, the new budget's in place, the 12-13 budget. What have we done? Those areas that we cut, especially our public schools, we've increased. We increased our public schools this year $300 million. That's 1.6% over what it was last year. I sit on the school funding as well as education appropriation committees. Very pleased to be a part of that vote very actively, moving forward for our schools. Very important other piece. Another challenge that we have is that we seem to have gotten hung up on the fact that everyone has to go to college, and that just is not true. And so I've been working hard to work with the education department, with Superintendent Flanagan, to say, hey, let's open up the choice a little bit here, choice of curriculum in particular, and let's work with our intermediate school districts. Let's work with our technical centers. Let's afford these people who don't want to go to college the opportunity to have a trade, to have a skill, so that when they leave high school, they become a good employee within the state of Michigan.
And would you point to a specific bill or package of legislation on that front that is in play now, or would that be something that you would set as a goal if elected to a second
Well,
term?
it already is in play. Representative Joel Johnson from the 97th District in Clare has a bill that specifically does that. What I went after talking to my superintendents, Dave, was what are areas that you're having problems with the dollars where they are and whatnot? And first thing that came out is, hey, the mandate for 2 years of foreign language. Wow, a mandate. The other mandate is a mandate for Algebra 2. Is that necessary? And mandate it for everyone? Excuse me. The answer is absolutely not. I have a specific bill that removes both of those mandates and allows then the choice for our children, and plays right in with Representative Johnson's bill, as well as Representative Eric. Eric from the Kalamazoo area comes in and has another bill, Eric Nesbitt, that complements the two of our bills. And that's exactly what we're trying to do. The other thing that we were able to do, and I'm excited about, is we got some added dollars to the intermediate school districts, specifically to do this. But along with the added dollars for those people, we put added dollars in for our Great Start programs. Again, wonderful thing that is really working. And I do like the way that our governor has talked about a P20 instead of a K-12. Because in reality, we're starting our kids earlier in school. We're trying to give them more skills earlier in life. And while we're doing that, we need to be taking care of them at the same time. And that's exactly what we're aiming to do and beginning to do now with this 12-13 budget that's now in place.
Post-November is going to be, regardless of the makeup of the legislative bodies, that lame duck session. Is there anything that is there right now that you, as a specific sponsor or supporter of a bill, hope to see get accomplished in that before those bills would then go off the table at the end of the year, and we would be resetting for 2013?
Well, those three bills that I talked about, with the intermediate school districts being the leader of the pack at that particular point, are three that we're really pushing hard to do. They're sitting right now in Representative Lyons' committee, the Education Committee, and they've already had hearings on it. It's a matter of taking a vote. Let's get them moving. That's
if not,
exactly what
and
we're
if reelected, would those be among the first that you would reintroduce?
Absolutely. Just way too important not to give our children that opportunity, give them that choice.
What would be a primary goal on whether it be the economy, education, or other issues that you would identify that if elected to a second term, you would set as a primary goal for a next legislative session?
Well, education is right there. We've just talked about that and where we'll be going if we don't complete this piece. But the other thing is then to continue that, to continue to find the funding. The other thing is there's such a difference between our schools here in rural Michigan and where we are at about $7,000 per student versus a lot of our urban schools where you're upwards of $8, $10, $12, even as high as $14,000. This has got to be changed. We need to alter this so that our children are receiving a much closer dollar amount, and we'll be working on that in both the education as well as the school funding committees. Right now it's being headed by Bill Rogers, who's doing a great job, and I anticipate that Bill will be back and will be chairman as we start the 97th legislature next year.
Some 10 years ago, the issue was, in fact, it became a major point in the campaign, the race for governor, was the idea that we were not going to tweak, we were not going to touch Proposal A. To talk about that funding issue, would that be something that you or other lawmakers have talked about, that we have reached another point where we need to look at reformatting, readjusting, perhaps starting all over with a school funding mechanism that would be separate from what we've known since the mid-90s?
Very true, Dave, and that's exactly what we've started already and we'll really get into in the next session. Yes, very excited about that, because it's the right thing to do. You know, our property values have changed so much since '07, and it really isn't what we want it to be. And so we need to bring it up to today, to 2012-13.
You talked about the credits, the lifting of the Michigan business tax and the reformatting of that. When it comes to the economic front, job development front, other things that you would point to, again, specific legislation that you were either author of or supporter of in the first term, or things that you would set as a primary goal if elected to a second term?
Well, as a first termer, I've been honored to be the chairman the Michigan Agriculture Department as well as Rural Development Appropriations Subcommittee, and that's given us a real opportunity. Agriculture was beaten down badly the previous 8 years. We've since grown agriculture again, but in that growth we're also working with the Michigan Economic Development Corporation to expand the opportunities for rural Michigan. But in particular, our governor is driving a point, and we're right there with him, as far as let's talk about ag processing here. Let's talk about things we can do and bring back to the state of Michigan, and we're right in the middle of that. So honored because in the 102nd District, Yoplait just opened up a milk-producing plant this spring. And that brought in some new jobs, but it also means milk production right there. And in light of the fact that Liberty Dairy is looking to close down part of their facility and move, this at least keeps part of that right there in that Everett-Reed City area. So specifically with 102nd, very involved in that, very involved in making that happen. I've been working with John Woodworth, the manager at Yoplait, to continue to make sure this happens. And I also had Keith Cray, who was the director of agriculture at that time, at that plant when it was approved and opened. Very proud to have that happen. And these are quiet things that are done in the background, but we get the job done.
In our last couple of moments, then, we like to give everyone who's either seeking re-election or challenging for a seat the chance to sum up the things somewhat that have come about in these conversations, but the chance for you to leave that last message with the voters as to why you're hoping they'll cast their vote for you.
Well, my one bill last year, Dave, I'm very proud of, was the anti-bullying bill. And it had been on the docket for 10 years. And I was able to, working with both sides, Republicans and Democrats, didn't matter. We made it a personal issue. The governor made it a personal issue, and it became law in December. Schools now have to have not only a policy, but they have to have an administrator in charge of that policy to make sure that our schools are safe, to make sure that our students are safe, and that they have a good place to educate themselves and to learn. And that, for me, was by far my biggest step. But it came in a bipartisan way, not from one party or the other, but together, and with our governor. That three-legged stool really was working, and with the Senate also, and very proud of that. And I want to continue that type of a reach out. I sit right now in the Democratic half of the House because we have 64 Republicans, 46 Democrats at this time. And so each one of them are my friends. And as I look back at that bill, ironically, I had more Democrats as co-sponsors than I had Republicans. And I'm very proud to be able to reach out and, again, represent my district. Did the very same thing when it came down to charter schools and voting on that. The governor personally called me into his office, say, Phil, where are you on this? And I said, Governor, let me tell you what I know. My Cadillac system, we have some choices. And you and I both know, coming out of business, that 3 is the ideal number of choices, correct? And he nodded and said, absolutely, Phil. And I said, well, in Cadillac, we right now already have 6 choices. And I thought, Governor, that we were here to talk about quality of schools, not quantity. And I want you to know, one size does not fit all. I will be a no vote. Merry Christmas. That was last December.
Well, for all the issues we've had a chance to talk about, for the goals that you would set if elected to a second term, we appreciate the time today, and thanks very much for taking the opportunity to be with us.
Well, you're so very welcome, and I thank you for this opportunity, and please remember to vote November 6th, if not earlier, as an absentee voter. Your vote is so important to America, because we do live in America, and God bless America.
We echo those sentiments, as always, at the end of these programs as well, urging you to get out and exercise your right to vote on Tuesday, November 6th. A reminder, too, that all of our segments here will be posted to our website. You can find all the details there, along with the full television schedule for all of our programs at WCMU.org. Our guest has been Representative Phil Potvin, Republican from Michigan's 102nd District, seeking re-election to a second term. For all of us here at Meet the Candidates, I'm David Nicholas. Thanks for your time.